The sun had set over the small town of Redwood, casting shadows across the streets and painting everything in shades of purple and blue. The only sound that could be heard was the rustling of leaves as they were blown about by the gentle breeze. It was quiet, too quiet for a town that was usually buzzing with activity. The residents of Redwood didn't pay much attention to the eerie silence that had taken over their town. They had all grown accustomed to the strange things that happened in Redwood, things that couldn't be explained by science or logic. The locals just brushed it off as another quirk of living in this town. But for the newcomers, like Tina, the silence was unnerving. She had moved to Redwood with her boyfriend, Adam, a few months ago for a fresh start. They had bought a house on the outskirts of town, away from the hustle and bustle of the main street. It was a quaint little house with a porch swing and a white picket fence, the ideal picture of suburban living. But there was something off about the house, something that made Tina uncomfortable. As they settled into their new home, Tina noticed that there were no birds chirping in the morning or crickets singing at night. It was as if the wildlife had evacuated the area. The couple didn't think much of it though, thinking that maybe the birds found a new place to build their nests. One evening, while Adam was at work, Tina was lounging on the porch swing, reading a book. The sun had set, but she wasn't ready to go inside just yet. The silence was weighing heavily on her mind, and she hoped that the sound of rustling leaves would calm her nerves. But then she heard something that sent shivers down her spine. It was a soft whisper, barely audible, but it was there. Tina tried to convince herself that it was just the wind, but her gut told her otherwise. She stood up from the swing and walked towards the fence that separated their yard from the woods. The whisper grew louder, and she realized that it was a voice, a woman's voice. The voice was coming from the woods, and Tina could hear the words clearly now. "Help me," the woman whispered. Tina wanted to run back inside, lock the doors, and call Adam immediately. But her curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to investigate. She opened the gate and walked into the woods. The whispering grew louder, and Tina felt like she was walking towards a trap. But she couldn't stop, couldn't turn back. The voice was leading her, and she had to find out who was calling for help. After a few minutes of walking, Tina stumbled upon a clearing. In the center of the clearing was a small cottage, with smoke rising from its chimney. The woman's voice was coming from inside the cottage, and Tina knew that she had to go in. Inside the cottage, the woman lay on a bed, weak and emaciated. Her hair was matted, and her skin was paper-thin. She looked like she had been in that bed for years, never leaving, never moving. Tina rushed over to her, wanting to get her some help. But the woman grabbed her arm with a strength that belied her condition. "Don't leave me here," she whispered. "They'll come back for me." Tina had no idea who they were, but she didn't want to scare the woman even more. She promised her that she would get help and went outside to call for an ambulance. When Tina returned to the cottage, the woman was gone. The bed was empty, the sheets were cold. Tina searched the cottage, but there was no sign of the woman. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Tina was confused, scared, and worried. She had no idea who the woman was or what had happened to her. As she walked back home, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that something was watching her. Days passed, and Adam noticed that Tina was on edge. She told him about the woman in the woods and how she had disappeared without a trace. Adam was concerned but brushed it off as a hallucination or a dream. But Tina knew what she had seen, knew that the woman was real, and that she needed help. As she sat on the porch swing, thinking about the woman, she heard the whispering again. This time it wasn't just one voice, but many voices, all whispering in unison. "We're watching you," they said. "We know your secrets." Tina bolted up from the swing and ran inside, locking the doors behind her. She was scared out of her mind, convinced that something was going to come after her. She tried to call the police, but the phone line was dead. She tried to call Adam, but his phone was off. As she sat in the living room, waiting for something to happen, she heard footsteps upstairs. Heavy, slow footsteps, like someone was dragging their feet across the floor. Tina grabbed a kitchen knife and walked up the stairs to investigate. The first thing she noticed was the smell. It was an acrid, putrid odor, like something had died in the house. The second thing she noticed was the blood. It was everywhere, smeared across the walls, dripping down the stairs. Tina's heart raced as she walked towards the bedroom. She knew that something terrible awaited her behind that door. And she was right. Inside the room was a scene straight out of a horror movie. The walls were covered in blood, and in the center of the room was a pentagram, drawn in blood. In the middle of the pentagram was a goat's head, its eyes staring blankly at Tina. Tina wanted to scream, wanted to run away, but she was frozen in place. She couldn't believe what she was seeing, couldn't comprehend how things had gone so wrong so quickly. And then the whispering started again, louder this time, more urgent. "It's too late," they said. "You can't escape now." Tina knew that she had to leave, had to get out of that house before it was too late. She ran down the stairs, tripping over her own feet, and stumbled out the front door. She didn't look back, didn't want to see what was behind her. As she ran down the street, she saw other houses with pentagrams drawn on their doors, goats' heads mounted on their walls. The town had changed, had been taken over by something evil and sinister. Tina knew that she couldn't stay in Redwood, couldn't live in a town filled with such horrors. She had to leave, had to find a way out before it was too late. But as she ran towards the outskirts of town, towards the safety of her old life, she realized that she was being followed. The voices whispered in her ear, telling her that she couldn't escape, that she was theirs now. Tina screamed and ran faster, hoping to outrun whatever was chasing her. But it was too late, and she knew it. The darkness had swallowed her whole, and there was no going back.